The silence. The galaxy had grown accustomed to humanity's noise. For 3 centuries, ever since they clawed their way off their small blue world and into the stars, humans had been everywhere. Their colony ships carved through the void like silver daggers. Their mining operations scarred asteroid belts. Their communication arrays screamed across subspace frequencies with 1,000 languages, 1,000,000 voices, all talking at once. Merchants, explorers, scientists, soldiers, humanity spilled into every corner of known space like water through cracked stone. The Vareth Consortium had called them parasites. The Kuomir Collective had named them opportunists. The ancient Dirwanin, who had sailed the stars for 10,000 years, simply called them loud. But no one could deny their presence. Humanity was a fact of galactic life, as unavoidable as gravity. Then one day they stopped. It began on the outer rim. A trading post near the Helix Nebula went silent. No distress signal. No evacuation notice. Just silence. The Vareth sent a patrol ship to investigate. They found the station intact, lights still burning, atmosphere stable. But empty. Every human, gone. Personal belongings remained. Meals half-eaten. Data terminals still active, their screens frozen mid-sentence. No bodies. No signs of struggle. No explanation. Within weeks, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human colonies went dark one after another, like candles snuffed by an invisible hand. Mining outposts, agricultural worlds, military installations, all abandoned. Fleets of human warships drifted in formation, perfectly maintained, crews vanished without a trace. Research stations orbiting dead stars transmitted automated status reports to no one. The Kuomir discovered an entire terraformed moon, population 3 million, completely deserted. Gardens still grew. Children's toys lay scattered in playgrounds. But every human had simply left. Or been taken. Or worse. The galactic community fractured immediately. The Vareth accused the Kuomir of orchestrating a mass abduction. The Kuomir blamed the enigmatic Dirwanin. Ancient territorial disputes reignited. Trade routes collapsed. Panic spread like fire through dried grass. Ambassador Tyleth of the Vareth Consortium stood before the Galactic Council, her 4 eyes burning with barely restrained fury. "Where are they?" she demanded, her translator rendering her clicking speech into flat, cold words. "What have you done with them?" Counselor Wren of the Kuomir rose, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. "We have done nothing." Perhaps they finally realized their own insignificance and fled to some forgotten corner of space. "Impossible," growled Warlord Kess from the Tarvan Dominion, his massive frame hunched over the council table. "Humans don't flee. They fight. They always fight. If something took them, it took them by force, and that means it could take any of us." The chamber erupted into chaos. Accusations flew. Threats were made. Ancient alliances crumbled. Only the DRWN remained silent. Highkeeper Oral, ancient beyond measure, watched the proceedings with golden eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of 100 civilizations. When the shouting finally subsided, she spoke, her voice like wind through stone corridors. "You ask the wrong question," she said softly. "You ask where they have gone. You should ask why they have gone. And more importantly," she paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled delegates, "you should ask what they knew that we did not." The chamber fell silent. Tyleth's claws scraped against the table. "What are you suggesting, Keeper?" Oral's expression remained unreadable. 300 years ago, when humanity first left their world, do you remember what we discovered about them? They were barely past nuclear technology. Chemical rockets. Primitive computing. By all rights, they should have taken another millennium to reach the stars. "They were assisted," Wren said dismissively. "Some faction gave them technology." "No." Oral's voice carried weight that silenced the counselor. "We investigated thoroughly. Humanity developed every technology themselves. In less than 2 centuries they went from first flight to faster-than-light travel. They didn't just catch up to us, they innovated. Created things we hadn't imagined in 10,000 years. They were." She searched for the word, driven. As if racing against time itself. Warlord Kess leaned forward. "What are you saying?" "I am saying," Oral continued, "that perhaps humanity knew something we didn't. Perhaps they saw something coming. Something that made them scatter across the stars with desperate speed, building, preparing, spreading their species as far and as fast as possible. And now," Tyleth whispered. Oral's golden eyes reflected the star field displayed on the chamber's dome. "Now they have all gone to the same place. Every human in the galaxy, vanished within weeks of each other. That is not exodus. That is not abduction. That is coordination. That is purpose. The implications hung in the air like smoke. They knew, Ren said slowly, his crystalline voice fractured with dawning horror. They've always known. Outside the council chambers, the galaxy churned with chaos. Trade routes collapsed. Defense perimeters weakened. Without humanity's merchant fleets, mining operations, and military presence, entire sectors faced resource shortages. The carefully maintained balance of power that had endured for centuries began to crack. And in the darkness between stars, something stirred. Something vast and patient. Something that had watched the rise of civilizations for eons, waiting for the perfect moment. The galaxy wondered where the humans went. Soon they would receive their answer. But by then it would be far too late. The burning void. The first sign came from the outer reaches, where light itself seemed reluctant to travel. A Vareth deep space monitoring station detected an anomaly, a gravitational distortion moving through empty space. Not a ship. Not a planet. Something else. The readings made no sense. Mass signatures that fluctuated impossibly. Energy outputs that violated basic thermodynamics. The station's AI flagged it as a system malfunction and prepared to recalibrate. Then the stars started going out. Not dimming. Not collapsing. Simply ceasing to exist. One moment, the sensors showed a red giant in Sector 447. The next moment, nothing. Not a black hole. Not a supernova remnant. Just empty space where a star had burned for 3 billion years. The station commander, a veteran named Corthex, stared at the data with all four eyes wide. "Send this to the council," he ordered, his voice steady despite the ice forming in his chest. Priority Alpha. 3 hours later, another star vanished. Then 2 more. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session. The chamber that had once echoed with political posturing now trembled with genuine fear. Delegates arrived with armed escorts. Some didn't arrive at all. Their homeworld suddenly seemed more important than galactic politics. 17 stars, Highkeeper Oral announced, her ancient voice cutting through the panicked murmurs. Gone in 4 days. No radiation signature. No gravitational collapse. They simply ceased to exist as if they were never there at all. How is that possible? Tyleth demanded. Her elegant diplomatic robes had been replaced with military armor. Several other delegates had made similar wardrobe changes. It isn't, replied Counselor Wren. His crystalline form pulsed with agitated light. Which means we're dealing with something beyond our understanding of physics. Something that can erase stellar masses from existence. Warlord Kess slammed a massive fist on the table, cracking the ancient stone. Then we fight it. Whatever it is, we mobilize every fleet, every weapon. With what? Tyleth interrupted bitterly. Half our military infrastructure depended on human support networks. Their manufacturing. Their logistics. She stopped, realization dawning. Their ships. The chamber fell silent. The human warships, she continued slowly. The ones we found drifting, fully armed and operational. Where are they now? A junior aide rushed forward, datapad trembling in his grip. Ambassador, they're gone. All of them. Every human vessel we'd been monitoring, civilian and military, they vanished 3 days ago. Just before the first star disappeared. The implications crashed over the assembly like a tidal wave. They knew, Oral said softly. By the ancestors, they knew this was coming. The investigation teams worked frantically, piecing together humanity's final days. Recovered data logs. Intercepted transmissions. Archaeological evidence from abandoned colonies. A picture emerged, fragmentary, terrifying, and impossibly vast. 5 years before their disappearance, human scientific output had shifted dramatically. Every major research institution had pivoted to esoteric fields. Exotic matter physics, dimensional mathematics, quantum entanglement at stellar scales. Projects that made no sense for a species focused on expansion and trade. 4 years before, humanity had begun construction on massive installations in the darkest voids between galaxies. Structures so distant that even their detection had been accidental. The DRYNN's long-range probes had captured images, megastructures that dwarfed entire star systems, built with a speed that should have been impossible. 3 years before, human birth rates had skyrocketed across every colony. Population booms coordinated with military precision. Every human settlement, from the smallest outpost to the largest orbital city, had expanded its capacity to maximum. They were preparing, Wren whispered, studying the timeline. Not for conquest. Not for exploration. They were preparing for this. 2 years before the vanishing, humanity had gone silent about something. Military communications went dark. Scientific publications ceased. The humans smiled, traded, talked about weather and sports and politics. But they stopped sharing anything that mattered. 1 year before, human ships had begun moving. Slowly at first, then with increasing urgency. Colony ships, cargo haulers, warships, pleasure yachts, all migrating toward unknown coordinates. When questioned, humans had offered pleasant excuses. Trade opportunities, new research sites, family reunions. All lies. They evacuated, Tyleth said, staring at the compiled data. Quietly, methodically, over the course of years. They moved their entire species to somewhere. And then? The chamber's emergency klaxon screamed to life. A holographic display burst into existence above the council table, showing the galaxy in horrifying real time. Red markers bloomed like blood in water, each one a vanished star. Dozens. Hundreds. The pattern spreading inward from the galactic rim, converging toward the core. Toward them. And moving through the void between the dying stars, something vast. The sensor returns barely registered it, like trying to see shadow in darkness. But it was there. Immense beyond comprehension. Ancient beyond measure. What is it? Someone whispered. Oral's golden eyes reflected the spreading catastrophe. The answer, she said quietly. The reason humanity spent 3 centuries spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. The reason they built in secret. The reason they left. She paused. They weren't running away. They were drawing it out. Luring it. Buying time. For what? Then, at the edge of the sensor display, something changed. The stars that had been vanishing stopped disappearing. The invisible predator that had been erasing them from existence paused. And from the deep void, from coordinates impossibly distant, a signal emerged. It took 3 full minutes to arrive, traveling at light speed from somewhere beyond the galactic rim. When it finally resolved, every translator in the chamber spoke the same words simultaneously. We are humanity. We have not fled. We have armed ourselves. What hunts you has hunted us for millennia. It followed us to the stars and we led it to you, not through malice but inevitability. We apologize for the deception. But understand this, we did not abandon you. We went ahead. Where it cannot follow. Where we could prepare. The burning cosmos gave you your answer. Now witness what fire truly means. Hold position. Reinforce your core worlds. What comes next will burn brighter than any star. The transmission ended. Tyleth felt her blood run cold and hot simultaneously. What have they done? On the holographic display, at the point where the darkness was thickest, where the ancient predator lurked, space itself began to ignite. Not explosions. Not weapons fire. Something infinitely more terrible. The void was burning. The fire eternal. The galaxy learned what humanity had become. Space itself fractured along the galactic rim, and through the wounds in reality they came. Not as refugees. Not as victims. As something the galaxy had never witnessed, humanity weaponized, unified, and utterly transformed. The first vessel that emerged made every warship in the known galaxy look like a child's toy. It stretched for hundreds of kilometers, its hull not made of metal but of something that drank light, that bent space around it like cloth. Symbols blazed across its surface. Not human languages but mathematics so pure it transcended species. Equations that described the fundamental forces of existence. Then came another. And another. Dozens. Hundreds. Thousands. A fleet that had been built in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, in the vast emptiness where nothing should exist. Every human who had vanished, they were there. Not aboard the ships. They were the ships. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence as the sensor data resolved. Each vessel contained thousands of human consciousness patterns, merged with artificial intelligence, bonded with exotic matter, transformed into something between organic and machine. They had abandoned their physical forms and become something evolution never intended. By the void, Ren whispered, his crystalline form dim with shock. They didn't just prepare. They transcended. High Keeper Oral's ancient eyes widened with understanding and horror. The megastructures. The research. The population boom. They weren't building ships. They were building bodies. New forms. And they uploaded themselves, all of them. Every human in existence. Why? Tyleth breathed. The answer came not in words but in action. The human fleet moved as one organism, positioning themselves in a perfect geometric pattern that spanned light years. At the center of their formation, the ancient predator stirred. Now, with humanity's vessels providing illumination, they could finally see it. It was not a creature, not in any biological sense. It was hunger given form. A tear in space-time, a wound in the fabric of reality that had gained sentience eons ago. It consumed not just matter and energy but existence itself. It ate stars not for fuel but to erase them from having ever been. The DRYNN's oldest archives spoke of it in fragments. The thing that ended civilizations at their peak, the reason galaxies went silent. The devourer. The end of all things. It had hunted humanity since before they left Earth. It fed on potential, on species that reached for greatness. Humanity had seen it in their telescopes centuries ago, watching dead zones in distant galaxies. They had understood immediately, run and it follows. Hide and it finds you. Fight and it erases you. So humanity had chosen a fourth option. Become something it couldn't digest. The human fleet began to sing. Not sound, space itself carried no sound. But every ship emitted synchronized quantum frequencies that rippled through the fabric of reality. Mathematical harmonics that described creation itself, building upon each other, creating resonance patterns of impossible complexity. Ambassador Tyletha's tactical display lit up with energy readings that shattered every scale. What are they doing? Oral's voice carried something between awe and terror. They're not fighting it with weapons. They're rewriting the fundamental constants of spacetime around it, trapping it in a prison made of physics itself. The void ignited. Not with fire or energy weapons, but with pure, concentrated existence. The human fleet channeled power drawn from dimensions the Council didn't have names for. Every ship burned like a newborn star, and the space between them blazed with impossible light. The devourer screamed, a sound that existed below reality, that shook the foundations of every planet in 100 systems. It thrashed against the prison humanity was building, erasing chunks of ships with casual swipes. Entire vessels, thousands of human minds, ceased to exist in microseconds. But more ships took their place immediately. The formation never wavered. A second transmission reached the Council. We purchased this weapon with everything we were. Every human who lived. Every child born in the last 5 years. We spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. 3 centuries spreading across the galaxy so we could draw it away from Earth, so we could lead it somewhere we controlled. This thing has ended 10,000 civilizations. Would have ended yours. We will not allow an 11th. Tyleth felt tears streaming down her face. They sacrificed their entire species. No, Oral said softly, understanding flooding her ancient mind. They transformed their entire species. They chose extinction as biological beings so they could become something capable of this. They saw this coming centuries ago and made a decision no species has ever made, to end themselves as they were so they could save everyone else. The prison tightened. Space itself constricted around the devourer, layer after layer of exotic physics crushing it into an ever smaller volume. The entity fought with the fury of something that had never known resistance, but humanity held firm. 10,000 ships burned away to nothing, their sacrifice measured in microseconds of containment. Then 20,000. 50,000. The human fleet was dying ship by ship, mind by mind, but they never faltered. The mathematical song grew stronger, more complex, beautiful and terrible beyond comprehension. And finally, silence. The devourer hung suspended in a sphere of twisted space-time, frozen at the moment between existence and non-existence. Not dead, it couldn't die. But trapped in a prison that would hold for millions of years, buried in dimensions that had no entry point, sealed by equations that required a unified species mind to maintain. The remaining human ships, fewer than 1,000 now, arranged themselves in a perimeter around the prison. Their message came through one final time. We will guard this prison until the heat death of the universe. Our consciousness will endure, merged with these vessels, maintaining the seal. We can never return to what we were. We can never evolve beyond this. We have locked ourselves into this form, this purpose, forever. Tell our story. Remember what we gave. Remember that when humanity disappeared, we did not abandon you. We became your shield. The cosmos burned and we burned brighter. This is our legacy. This is our choice. This is humanity's final gift to the galaxy, tomorrow. In the council chamber, absolute silence reigned. Then slowly Warlord Kess rose to his feet. The massive warrior's eyes glistened with something his species rarely showed, respect bordering on reverence. He placed his fist over his heart in a salute older than his civilization. One by one, every delegate stood. Verif, Kolmer, DRYNN, Tarvin. Species that had warred for millennia. Species that had dismissed humanity as young and reckless. Species that had never imagined sacrifice at this scale. They all saluted the burning void. Highkeeper Oral's voice echoed through the chamber. Let it be recorded in every archive, taught in every school, remembered until the last star dies. When darkness came for the galaxy, when an ancient evil sought to end all things, humanity stood between oblivion and us. They gave everything. Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the oldest, but because they were ready. Because they looked ahead and chose hope over despair, sacrifice over survival. Tyleth approached the display showing the human vessels standing eternal guard over their cosmic prison. They asked us to tell their story. How do we possibly find words worthy of what they've done? Oral smiled, the first genuine smile in 1,000 years. We don't need to. They already gave us the words. She gestured to the transmission still displayed on every screen. The cosmos burned and we burned brighter. The galaxy would recover. Trade routes would rebuild. New alliances would form. The power vacuum left by humanity's departure would be filled, carefully, reverently, with their sacrifice always remembered. In the deep void, the human fleet maintained their vigil. Eternal guardians. No longer flesh and blood but something more enduring. They had wondered where humanity went. The burning cosmos had given its answer. Humanity went forward. Into the fire. Into legend. And there they would remain, burning bright against the darkness, until the universe itself grew cold. This was not an ending. This was humanity's eternal beginning.